Hate to see it botched? Here's the best bits, a Botching It Up podcast short clip.
In Vince's mind, this is the best match he can put on right now.
Yeah, I think that's where the original idea came from, and obviously they're going to hyperbolize everything to try and sell a few more network buys for the evening.
But don't you think Edge versus Seth Rollins or Roman Reigns or someone like that is more interesting?
I think Vince actually, and I think this is a massive problem with WWE, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, Drew McIntyre are the current generation's main eventers. But it's quite clear from the way that Vince books guys from yesteryear that he doesn't ever see the main eventers of his today on the same level of his main eventers as yesteryear.
Yeah, well, he's a long time relied on part-timers to try and bring star power and, I think, excitement to older fans.
Go back in time. Bret Hart won the championship from Yokozuna at WrestleMania 9 in the main event. Or maybe, I think Bret Hart lost it, but Bret Hart was the main event of WrestleMania 9. Yokozuna comes out triumphant. Who comes back and wins in 10 seconds? Hulk Hogan. Ultimate Warrior in 1996 came back, had a squash against Triple H. He was destined to go into the main event scene, but Ultimate Warrior took his ball and left. You had Undertaker versus Kane in the main event of for the SmackDown Championship in 2010. This has been going forever. This is Vince's idea. The main guys of today are never as good as the main guys of yesteryear, and he can't, in his own head, seriously consider Seth Rollins and Edge to make more money to him than Edge and Randy Orton.
Are Edge and Randy Orton considered legends yet?
I think that's an interesting point. I think they've been fed to us now as legends.
Yeah, I feel like they're forced legends upon me. I don't consider either of them at that status yet. Both of them will be. Very much I can see that they'll be in the Hall of Fame and we'll remember them for decades to come. But right now it doesn't feel like either man is at that level of Hogan, Undertaker, Bruno Sammartino. You know, he's not up on those pedestals yet.
This is a really interesting point that you've made here. Randy Orton has been with WWE continually since 2002, I believe. So he's been with WWE for 18 years. Edge, I think, started in 98. So on and off 2020, give or take the years in injury. He's been there for nearly the same amount of time. Hogan, Austin, Rock, Mankind, Triple H, they've had shorter careers. Some of the guys, Austin in WWE has had a shorter career than Dolph Ziggler.
Well, both Austin and The Rock have had shorter careers than a lot of the people on the main roster right now.
So is it the fact that Randy Orton and Edge aren't legends because of the duration and what they've been presented to us? Or is it because they can't make those guys anymore? And thus they sell Randy Orton and Edge as those guys now?
It's a weird one for me to consider Randy Orton a legend. Maybe it's because he's been an active full-time member of the roster for so long. Maybe it's not until you step away. Because Edge is closer to that pedestal, and I guess that's because he got injured and he's been away for so long and he's only just come back. So now it feels like a gritty veteran returning to get his retirement match, to get his last blazing glory of fame. But it just doesn't feel like that with Randy Orton. It just feels like another match to him.
And that's another good point. I mean, is it the fact that a lot of these guys aren't legends and don't feel like legends and won't feel like legends because they don't go anywhere else?
Because Cena has a very different feel now than what he had 3-4 years ago. I think it's weird how universally loved Cena has become in the last 2 years. People that absolutely hated him, and I'm a hypocrite too. I'm on the same level. Really disliked him back in his heyday, and when I see him now, and I'm like, yeah, he's interesting because we see him less, and he's an interesting personality, but not when he's forced down our throats.
I'm the same thing. I get a nice feeling when Cena is around. And I used to dislike Cena just as much as anybody else, but I respect the fact that I really enjoy him and that he's on the upper echelon these days. Like he is really up there in terms of guys that made the most impact on the industry. Randy Orton, maybe if he just like took 2-3 years off, came back at a Royal Rumble with a grey beard, how would you react? Maybe you would have instantly feel like got inducted into the Hall of Fame. Maybe you would instantly feel like he was one of those guys. Because also Batista, I know he's a movie star now. Maybe that helps a little bit. But when Batista came back in 2014, everybody shit on him. Like everybody hated him because they wanted Daniel Bryan to win. But fast forward another 4 years, Batista again is kind of seen in that upper tier that you don't see Orton in.
Yeah, he is. I mean, I'm biased anyway. I love Batista, everything he's ever done. But yeah, he's on a different level now because he's left and he's come back, and that match with Triple H was so good. He's hit a higher level than what he was beforehand.
Definitely.
And I think with Randy Orton, unfortunately, it's just because he's been around for so long. He's just a familiar face. You see him almost in the same. I mean, I know to not the same degree, but he's almost in the same vein as Dolph Ziggler. He's just been a clog in the machine for so long that we just don't take notice of him in the same.
To be fair, he's also been treading water for a very long time. I remember him having these opening matches at WrestleMania. He had one with AJ, he had one with Seth Rollins. The last massive feud, and this is maybe just me looking old and not paying attention to the product anymore. The last massive, really massive feud I remember with Randy Orton is against Christian 10 years ago.
Is that when Christian returned back to WWE and went on a title run?
Yeah.
And he only had it for like a month.
That was the last thing that I remember thinking. Randy Orton is not just another guy, he is Randy Orton,
That was a really depressing storyline because Christian's one of my boys and just completely
Christian's one of your boys.
Completely got squashed.
So you watched a couple of matches as well. What did you see?
So WWE themselves uploaded to YouTube last week some Randy versus Edge matches from 2004. So the first one was from Vengeance, when Randy Orton is defending his Intercontinental Championship against Edge. This is a 30-minute match, and it was a classic WWE match. It starts unbelievably painfully slow, and it doesn't speed up that much. It's by no means either of their best matches. Edge wins, and then in vintage WWE fashion, next night on Raw they have a rematch where Orton wins it back. Without knowing the story going into this, looking back on it, it seems completely irrelevantly pointless. But I guess it had meaning at the time. It was neat. It wasn't a highlight for either man.
So you can take those two matches. I can't remember them having any more, like apart from their tag team. You take the WrestleMania 36 match, which is to me that was the worst WrestleMania match I've seen since Bret Hart versus Vince McMahon. So what have you got? I mean, again, if we're talking objectively about why this is being labeled as the greatest wrestling match ever, it's not because they can have good matches against each other.
Yeah, it's just I feel like because they're being portrayed to us as legends. Like you said earlier, their promos are on fire. Definitely against each other, those two are doing some great work. But it seems very obvious that in ring they have very little chemistry with each other, which is just an extra ingredient you need to have the best match of all time.
This also really is a classic idea of a wrestler in a script giving a little bit too much away for thought. As Randy Orton very rightly pointed out, we have seen Edge since he came back in a Royal Rumble and a gimmick match, which aren't matches. Randy Orton's point about this was, can Edge still go? And I'm starting to wonder the same question.
That's why I think that this might be a very short match. I'm not sure, like you said, it will be a shenanigan thing and we won't get a match at all. But I got a feeling they're going to kind of Goldberg it.
For all of the people that don't live in smart mark land or don't look at how good a match is and just watch the product for the product, which seems to be most of WWE's audience at this point. They cater towards people that enjoy entertainment, they cater towards kids, and they cater towards kids' parents. So getting away from our little bubble, our little understanding of great matches and why and where they come from, and just seeing it from a 8-9 year old's perspective. I mean, I don't know about you, man, but when I was 12, if they told me something, I believed it. You know,
But would you
I think
believe, even if they were telling you that this is going to be the best match ever, would you believe it after seeing what they did at Mania?
no,
If I was a
but then
kid, I'd be way more hotter on Seth Rollins right now than what Edge and Orton are doing.
I would be 100% a Cody Rhodes fan. But I mean, I guess the point I'm making is when we were 12 years old, if WWE told us that this is going to be the greatest match ever, and then Randy Orton said, well, we haven't actually wrestled yet, so let's wrestle. And then WWE says, well, this may now be the greatest wrestling match ever because they're wrestling. You're more inclined to believe that as a general kid, right, than as us.
Yeah.
And if that is the case, and that's the majority of their fan base, these WWE kids are either going to finally realize what it is to be lied to for the first time by WWE, or they're going to have to try and kill themselves and go 45 minutes.
So if this match doesn't live up to expectations, there's going to be a lot of sad kids watching.
I mean, just generally speaking, though, with WWE's current product and how we were talking about Foley and Cena, and we remember those feuds, I'm not sure it is nostalgia, you know. I think that what WWE did 20 years ago was made a fan base that is sitting here doing a podcast now who don't enjoy the product anymore but continue to read the news even if they don't watch the shows. Do you think that they've made enough of an effort with the current generation of stars to get the same effect in 20 years? When we're fat and old, do you think there'd be like 25, 26-year-olds then doing a podcast talking about the glory days of 2020 and how bad the product is now?
But is that just you living in the golden glory days? Because you got Jim Cornette saying how fantastic the 70s and 80s were, and that the 90s was okay, and then everything since then has been fucking awful. So we're doing the exact same, just 20
Yeah.
years later.
But do you think that there's going to be a fall off there? Do you think that they've done?
Well, I mean, even if you just look at their TV ratings, it's declining week by week by week by week. I would expect at the end of the year for them to say that the merchandise sales are lower as well.
Yeah.
I just blew my own mind actually, just thinking that this whole best match ever thing is meant to be branding and it's meant to be some great marketing to try and get all of us hardcores and all of us casuals to tune in and watch this show. But then just what you were thinking about all the 12-year-olds being disappointed. Is this going to be some marketing that's just going to blow up in their face hugely? Because so many people are going to tune into this with such high expectations. And if the match doesn't deliver on those really high expectations, like literally the best match they've ever seen, everyone's going to see if this was the best matches ever, it wasn't actually that very good. If WWE are never going to put on anything better than this, what's the point in even watching?
Shoot yourself in the foot moment. Because obviously, me and you and guys like us and guys older than us, we know better. That's the point I'm making. We already know that this is a gimmick, this is a promo, whatever. It's getting eyes on the product. But there are young kids out there who will take anything WWE say and lap it up. If they're told that this is the greatest wrestling match ever, and who knows, man, probably to a 12, 13-year-old, Edge and Orton are seen in the same way as Austin. They probably are. So if they're then told that these two legends that they've only really ever heard about, obviously Orton's been around, but the guys that apparently had that famous feud back in the day with DX, man, and they faced that old man Mick Foley. They're told then that they're gonna have a match and it's gonna be the greatest thing ever. Well, they're gonna go in expecting it.
And if it doesn't deliver on those levels, it's a dangerous game to play because you're setting an expectation so high. I feel like NXT, AEW, Ring of Honor, and New Japan can deliver on that expectation. I know a lot of those people aren't running shows right now, but if there's a load of 12 to 20-year-olds that are casuals and quite new to wrestling, and they think that this is the best show WWE could do, they might just turn the channel.
Exactly. I mean, I don't think that the 12-year-olds will be going to New Japan, but I do think that the 12-year-olds might go over to AEW if they find out that it's on.
Or even NXT. I mean, I know it's the same universe as Raw and SmackDown, but it's such a different product and it's marketed in such a different way. I could definitely see people turning off Edge and Orton to go watch Takeover and stuff.
At 26 years old, my favorite wrestling match this week was the cage pit between Thatcher and Riddle. At 14-year-olds, my favorite match this week would have been Thatcher versus Riddle.
Yeah, it was a great.
Like, share, and subscribe to keep it botched up, brother.